He built an empire with blood. He transformed a nation through terror. He was worshipped as a god, but ruled like a devil. His name was Joseph Stalin. And what if the story you think you know barely scratches the surface of the absolute brutality, the chilling paranoia, and the sheer audacity of the man who arguably shaped the 20th century more profoundly than any other, all while committing crimes on an unimaginable scale? From an impoverished seminary student to the undisputed dictator of the Soviet Union, how did this happen? And what was the true cost of his reign? Get ready to confront the chilling rise and the ultimate bloody fall of the 20th century's most enigmatic tyrant. Our story begins not in the Kremlin but in a small, impoverished town in Georgia, 1878. Born Iosif Vissarionovich Jugashvili, the son of a shoemaker and a washerwoman, his early life was marked by poverty, an abusive father and a deeply religious mother who pushed him towards the priesthood. He even attended a seminary. But young Iosif found a different gospel, Marxism. He was drawn to the radical underground, embracing the ideas of revolution and change. He adopted the pseudonym Stalin, the Man of Steel, a name that would soon define an era of iron rule. Before the 1917 revolution, he was known as a ruthless operative, a bank robber, an enforcer for the Bolsheviks, Lenin's wonderful Georgian. His methods were brutal, his loyalty unquestioning. He was a man willing to do the dirty work. When the Russian Revolution erupted in 1917, throwing centuries of czarist rule into chaos, Stalin was not on the front lines of intellectual debate or grand strategy. While figures like Lenin and Trotsky dazzled with rhetoric, Stalin quietly mastered the mechanics of power. He wasn't the ideologue, he was the administrator, the organizer, the man who controlled the party machine. This seemingly unassuming role would prove to be his most potent weapon. After the revolution, as the Bolsheviks consolidated power, Lenin recognized Stalin's organizational skills, appointing him General Secretary of the Communist Party in 1922. On the surface, this seemed like a dull, bureaucratic role. But Stalin saw its true potential. He controlled appointments, promotions, and expulsions. He built a vast network of loyalists. When Lenin suffered a debilitating stroke, a power vacuum emerged. The intellectual giants like Trotsky believed their charisma and ideological purity would secure their succession. But they underestimated the Man of Steel. Stalin, methodically, relentlessly, began to isolate and undermine his rivals. He was a master of political maneuvering, intrigue, and ruthless opportunism. He played them against each other, smeared their reputations, and gradually stripped them of their influence. Trotsky, once Lenin's presumed successor, was exiled, then ruthlessly hunted down and assassinated in Mexico. Others were systematically purged, accused of treason, and eliminated. By the late 1920s, the quiet bureaucrat had outmaneuvered every single one of them. The stage was set for absolute power. By 1929, Stalin was the undisputed dictator of the Soviet Union. His vision was clear: rapidly industrialize the agrarian nation and transform it into a global power. But his methods were horrifyingly brutal. His policy of forced collectivization seized private land, leading to widespread resistance and engineered famines, most notably the Holodomor in Ukraine, which deliberately starved millions to death. This wasn't a side effect, it was a weapon. But perhaps his most terrifying legacy was the Great Purge of the 1930s. Driven by a pathological paranoia, Stalin systematically eliminated anyone perceived as a threat: old Bolsheviks, military leaders, intellectuals, even ordinary citizens. Show trials, forced confessions extracted through torture, and mass executions became routine. Millions were sent to the brutal, forced labor camps of the Gulag, where they perished from starvation, exhaustion, and unimaginable cruelty. It's estimated that tens of millions suffered under his iron fist. His terror knew no bounds. This wasn't just political suppression, it was a systematic dismantling of society, fueled by fear and the cult of personality. Stalin demanded absolute loyalty, and even the slightest hint of dissent meant certain death. In 1941, the nightmare of World War II arrived on Soviet soil with the Nazi invasion. Despite initial catastrophic losses, the Soviet Union, under Stalin's brutal, unyielding leadership, eventually turned the tide. The cost was astronomical. Over 20 million Soviet citizens died, a sacrifice that in many ways secured Allied victory. Stalin, now hailed as a war hero, emerged from the conflict not weakened but emboldened. His power was cemented. The post-war era saw the rapid expansion of Soviet influence into Eastern Europe, creating an Iron Curtain and igniting the Cold War with the West. Despite the victory, the internal repression continued. Anyone suspected of disloyalty, even returning POWs, faced the gulag. His paranoia only intensified. By the early 1950s, Stalin's health was failing, but his grip on power remained absolute. His paranoia, however, reached new heights. He launched new purges, targeting doctors, Jews, and his closest associates. The terror continued. On March 5, 1953, Joseph Stalin died. The official cause was a cerebral hemorrhage, but lingering questions about foul play persist. The reaction was monumental, public outpouring of grief mixed with unspoken relief and terror. For the Soviet people, it was the end of an era. For the world, it was the end of an absolute chilling reign. Stalin's death did not immediately erase his legacy. His successors, notably Nikita Khrushchev, eventually initiated a process of de-Stalinization, condemning his excesses and dismantling the cult of personality. But the scars ran deep. The regime he built, founded on terror and absolute control, eventually crumbled under its own weight decades later. The millions dead, the shattered lives, the suppressed freedoms, these are the true monuments to Joseph Stalin. His story is a chilling reminder of how a seemingly unassuming man can rise to absolute power, how power can corrupt absolutely, and the horrific cost when a nation trades freedom for the promise of order. The fall of Stalin's body did not erase the shadow he cast, a shadow that still lingers over parts of the world today. Understanding his rise and the brutal mechanics of his power is not just about historical record, it's a vital lesson for humanity. If this journey through one of history's darkest chapters brought you new understanding, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to History Distilled for more stories that reveal the true forces shaping our world.